Okay, the P5 was worth it, boys. What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. We have the two new animus arriving, Kokardi and Aya, and I've done a lot of gameplay on them, invested pretty heavily into both, but specifically Kokardi. And before we jump in, there's a few things I just want to say. I had things a little bit backwards. I thought for sure, at least for my own account, that Aya would be the one that would kind of make my life a lot easier. You know, she has a lot of turn meter, shell resets, things like that. And very importantly, if you max DS2, which we'll cover later in the video, we'll talk about like skill prowess upgrades, depending on if you're a bruiser player or not. But I think this was going to be something that I really look forward to, as a lot of times control can be very strong against bruiser players. But to my surprise, she actually was still pretty good for my account. I haven't really figured out her optimal shell and gearing because I just don't have access to it yet. However, I think this is actually going to be Kokardi is the one I was more interested in, and actually I had a lot more fun playing, and I think I will be playing or building around him more in terms of RTA strategies. There's a lot I'm thinking of, a lot that I've learned, and I can't wait to test it more. So make sure you guys stop by any of my live streams this week, these upcoming days, because I'll be testing him a lot more. But yeah, real quick as well, disclaimer, I do have the skins on, guys. I know sometimes y'all really dislike that. Once again, big shout out to Wallow and some of my Twitch chat. They gifted it to me before I even summoned the characters. But we do also have the Yelly skin as well, guys. So, you know, I'm not just buying the recolors. We also did support Etheria for, you know, actually making their first unique skin. But anyways, let's get on with the video. Now, before we jump straight into the gameplay guide and the PvP footage, let me know how your summons went if you did already summon for these two characters. And if you haven't yet, today I'll be trying to sell you on one or both, or, you know, depending on how your playstyle is in your account, if you need one or the other character. Now, I did end up pulling many copies of both. Actually, just 2 copies of Aya, or Aya, and then many copies of Kokardi, and that's mainly because of the prowess up event. And at first, I was just going to grab 1 copy of each to get that first lattice, as I think if you have extra summons, it's good value. But my luck was pretty crazy on Kokardi, and we actually ended up P5ing him, meaning max prowess dupes, to get the full event done. I believe we only pitted him once or twice, and the rest, some of them are like 1 taps, 2 taps, you know, getting them in 1 multi, 2 multis. So actually, our luck did turn around, so we ended up just maxing him out, and I do think he was very worth it moving forward. But yeah, wait for my full review. I'll talk about exactly how good or how good or bad he was kind of for my own style. That being said, the Aya, I did just grab 1 copy as well for the lattice, as I think the tier 2, she does get increased healing, but I'll cover that later in the video too. You know, I'm kind of out of resources, so we're gonna save from here on out. But I do like that. And one other disclaimer, if you haven't seen already, guys, in the event shop there is a new, where is it under here? I think it's, yeah, under the value selection maybe. Oh no, will it not show because I already bought it? There was some like 3,000, oh sorry, it's right here. Anima boost chests for both the Kokardi and Aya. Just be aware, I did have some viewers buy this and they thought it was just a straight up lattice. This is specifically only for Kokardi and specifically only for Aya. You can see their little silhouette on the lattice if you look closely. But if you weren't paying attention, you know, don't be mistaken. It's hard to see that this is not a general lattice. That would be cool to start selling lattice for crystals, but for now, I think this is at least a start. And even though the value 3,000 crystals may seem like a lot, I think the fact that we can just buy lattice as free to play now is very good. And the reconfigured chips are also really, really nice. If you can't see there, there's actually quite a bit of reconfigured chips in there too. So very good for rolling your shells. All right, now with all that yapping out of the way, let's talk about the actual characters themselves. And remember, no matter what you hear from myself, other streamers, other content creators, Reddit, Discord, it's too early to make a 100% judgment call. We need to wait to see how this last balance patch meta shifts and affects the entire player base. We need to see how like people test them, you know, what I'm going to be doing with them and things like that. There's different strategies you can employ and how you run them. Are you playing as a bruiser, as a cleaver? Just for example, Aya, which I thought would be very good for me. She's still good, but she's going to be more, actually, I've seen cleavers really like this character. And instead, as a bruiser player, I'm shifting into more an attack-oriented comp, using him, sometimes Infonial, Attack Viper, things like that. So I think there's so many shells, equipment, and then, like I said, meta shifts to adjust to, that it's really hard to say for sure how meta these characters will be. Now, I don't think either of them out of the box are going to be like first pick material. Maybe Aya for cleavers. I'm not cleave oriented, so I don't know. But for Kokardi especially, guys, if you first pick him, you're going to be in for a bad time. And that's not a bad thing. I think, you know, characters like Plume are actually over-tuned. and shouldn't be just the first pick, end all be all, always good in every scenario. Kokardi you have to draft around specifically. You need to give him enough support, and you need to make sure that you're not drafting him into, you know, certain hard counters like Tiamat, things with a lot of AoE, and he, you know, you need to give him some support as well in terms of like cleanses and some healing, because he will take some stray area effect damage. But that being said, I would say let's just give my first initial review. Kokardi, we'll start with him. I think he has a lot of potential. You do need to fully invest into him. Bruisers like this, or I shouldn't even say a bruiser, but damage dealers like Kokardi, especially ones that are attack scaling. Look at units like Messiah, units like Yeli. You really need to get them fully lattice, at least you know, full lattice in terms of what the main priorities are. And on top of that, dupes will definitely help too. Now, this is not mandatory, right? I don't think a game should ever have to feel like you need P5, but if you guys do like this character and you plan to use him a lot, especially at higher levels, Master Mythic, RTA, Summit Arena, you really need to start thinking about getting at least the free-to-play dupes, or if you have extra summons, try to fish for them, because I do think characters like this really shine, obviously, when you give them all the love. Sometimes it can feel underwhelming if you don't full invest. Actually, I should just say it's always underwhelming if you don't full invest in DPS characters. And I think attack scaling characters like Kokardi, compared to like low lattice investments on Tiamat, Rahu especially, they're not going to be nearly as effective. So that's just, you know, you need to invest in these characters. You need to be serious about running them, and you need to draft them carefully. If you get all of that lined up, I think he's actually has a lot of potential. And the fact that he can't be, oh man, I can't wait to tell you guys about this in a second, but so many interactions he bypasses in terms of like, it can't be countered because he can't be targeted. So he has some really cool unique mechanics in terms of the can't be targeting things, and I think for that reason he'll be a nice tool set to have for PvP. Now, Aya, I haven't done a lot of testing with. She did come up in a lot of my games, but I don't think she was like a linchpin in terms of like, you know, holding my team together by any means. But just first glance, I do think most players can utilize her in some way. The main thing with me is her healing was pretty subpar. So if you're ever trapped in a scenario where she is your only healer and you play a lot of bruisers and you need the match to go a long time, yeah, she ain't cutting it. I think after the buffs, like Nymphonial's heals actually felt really good. Aya, especially when she's not cleansing, the heals are non-existent. So just be careful of that. You probably want to bring her with an extra healer, or you better be bringing a crap ton of damage to kind of offset that. All right, let's go talk about day one lattice, priority, and gear. In terms of gear for Kokardi, I am a bruiser player, and this is a PvP build, not PvE, but I'll probably just use it for both. The thing is, we actually went full glass cannon, all damage, you know, full on DPS, because when I first was starting at the stream, a lot of my chat that did some testing, especially higher level players, they were telling me that on Bloodbath, he felt pretty underwhelming. And I actually just decided to start him on the count and go full damage. And yeah, it felt much better because we did end up fighting some Bloodbath Kokardis, and hopefully I have some footage of that to show y'all. But they felt very weak, especially when you're fighting other bruisers. The damage just wasn't there. And even when he's fully stacked, it's out healable, assuming your Etheria facts, the stacks aren't super high up yet. And I think the play is to go more damage oriented. Now, on top of that too, guys, in terms of gearing, I think as well, I want to give him more speed. So you guys can see here on my shell, and excuse the shell limit. The speed here, I think, is actually best in slot, because the main thing with Kokardi is we want to cycle. So luckily enough, I had this already on it. I was thinking about swapping it to crit damage. But the fact that he only needs 70% crit because of his crit buffs, and because I think we want to be cycling based off how the passes work, and we'll talk about lattice in a second, I think speed is going to be very important for him too. So long story short, if you are a bruiser player, I think the play is to actually go full damage and just make sure you're not running into any of the hard counters that have AoE, because he will end up getting, you know, two-shot by stray AoE from Rahu's, Tiamats, things like that. In terms of the prowess upgrades, let's talk about that real quick. As a bruiser, once again, I opted for 5-5-1 setup. Now, S3 is also going to be something you want to get. I talked about the cycling, so speed here will be very nice. And just having extra damage on his first S3, and usually you will cycle back in S3 playing a bruiser lineup as you're living a long time. Every extra damage will help. The turn meter's okay. I think it's more for the damage and the speed upgrades here. The Calamity stacks are also kind of nice. They get you up there faster, but I think definitely if you need to save lattices, these aren't super important for his overall game plan, in my opinion. We'll see how that shapes up. So we opted for S1. That's going to give us the very big damage, the attack percents. We have the Calamity Flame damage boost effect increasing, and then we get more maximum stacks, which will, you know, improve our damage, especially when he's fully stacked up. And then the S2 is what we opted for as well over the S3. That's going to give us the crit rate to get us that 70% without having crit right side module. And then we also have just better stacking on his passive effect with damage multipliers. I think all in all, you do want to fully invest like 555 him eventually. And I will go up, probably up to here for now, and then I'll decide if I want this last one, because that is still 1 extra lattice. But as y'all can see, guys, even with that full prowess update, I am back to 0 lattices. I did have to invest a little bit in Aya, but yeah, I have nothing to do here, or no more to invest here, I should say. And I still need to build characters like Born, Hellkid. So many characters I want to build, not enough lattices to go around. But that is the prio. I would say if you're a bruiser, go S1, S2, and save S3 for later. It's something you're going to want to pick up additionally. But right now, since he's not like a first pick material for me, he might just sit here for a long while. Now, Aya, on the other hand, let's talk about her gearing. Now, this set is not very optimal. I am waiting to get a Reaper Steps on something probably like Strive, Bloodbath, Swift Smite. Okay, and then we're going to run like triple F res on the right side, and she's just going to cycle like a crazy lady. And we're going to probably pick her mostly into crowd control comps. But there are a few scenarios where, let's say, guys, you were playing something like if you want like a Tiamat carry, having her as a support to cleanse off those wounds is also very, very important and very nice to have. So she has a lot of applications as a bruiser player. And once again, if you are a cleaver player, people have been saying she is extremely strong there. So cleavers, this might be your character instead of Kokardi, to be honest. Last but not least, let's talk about PvP, especially Summit Arena, as this is where, at least in my opinion, the end game of Etheria is at. For Etheria, I'm sure they both work. I tried it, and honestly, I didn't like either of them particularly in Etheria, but maybe there's some comps I'll bust them out in. Instead, Summit Arena is where I feel like they really shined. So I'll probably leave you guys with either some matches, or I'll just have some gameplay showing in the background of my favorite highlights of today. But we did end up forcing these characters into almost every single draft unless my opponent stole them. And let's see if I can just show y'all some examples here of some standout matches. So I did end up trying to take Tiamat for myself, as I felt that if I was fighting Tiamat, the Kokardi would just end up dying. So in any match that either my opponent banned Tiamat, I could freely pick Kokardi in like the lock slot, or I would try to take Tiamat for myself and have Kokardi be the the backup threat, where they would oftentimes build or bring a lot of counter units, look things like Rahu, things like Mizuki, to start trying to mitigate the Tiamat effectiveness, and then Kokardi would kind of clean up from behind, and there was some big damage coming through. I did draft Aya in different scenarios. Once again, I was talking about the Tiamat interaction, like her cleansing wound, and it was pretty relevant. I think once I get better gear and maybe even more lattice investment in Aya, she'll feel much better. And anytime she's alongside another healer, I think she works amazing. It's just, for me at least in how I play, if she's ever trapped in a solo heal position, it just doesn't work out. It's kind of similar to Nymphonial, but I think even Nymphonial now after the buffs has some insane healing. Let's see some other matches here, guys. Once again, is this the same one? No, this is a similar one where we end up with a Kokardi on 5. So as you guys can notice here, a lot of times I am picking Kokardi in the last pick position, because if you pick him too early, there's a lot of threats. Anything with a lot of AoE, some people will just cleave you, come over the top. So two things: you need to find out what kind of game plan your opponent is rocking. If they're a bruiser player, a lot of times you're a little bit more safe to pick him. Second, if there's a lot of AoE coming through, if they take Tiamat, if they have just a lot of threatening units like Messiah, you're not going to want to draft him, as he's not really going to work out if your opponent is faster and can reach him with the untargetable status. But in any of these bruiser lineups, I think he really, really pulls his weight. And especially, guys, if you can draft him. I actually had people banning Kokardi even as a threat. So people were definitely respecting him. And the losses, of course, were things testing, like the Kokardi lost here solo versus this lineup. But let me see if I can find one that had... I think I had like an Nymphonial game right here, I believe. Yeah, I think Nymphonial is another unit that can work extremely well with Kokardi, especially after her buffs. Anytime you can get multiple attack scaling units together with Nymphonial, so think of units like Lilium, Viper, Born, and then especially Kokardi, Nymphonial works really well. And she even works sometimes, if you have enough damage, as a solo support slot between the shields, between the attack up. She's really providing a lot, and the S2 now heals a crap ton, so keep an eye on it. I'm probably going to be drafting a lot of Nymphonial plus Kokardi combos in the future. But overall, even with forcing this character on lock... Oh, and I lost this one to Bach, guys, and he was actually running a very, very nice... look at this. So speaking of Nymphonial, I actually drafted Nymphonial the last game, and the next game I fought Bach, who ended up taking Kokardi on 5. I was trying to see if I could counter pick him with multiple AoE and see if like the Shiata plus Tia. However, unfortunately, between the mass amounts of attack up that I told y'all about with the Nymphonial, he was able to speed up with the Doki, and just kind of kill Shiata, and from there the 3v4 scenario was not enough. I think if I had a different unit than Shiata here, I'd have much better odds, potentially even winning this match. But Shiata got traded off so quick, just a non-factor. I need to make a better Shiata build. Even with that damage reduction and on Bloodbath, she is just still so squishy. I need to figure out how to make her work in these kind of lineups. Regardless, though, yeah, we had a very good record forcing Kokardi, forcing Aya. I think I used them in a lot of different comps, between Infonial, between as a solo DPS, sometimes paired with something else like a Rahu or a Tiamat. As long as you give him support and pick him carefully, I think he really works, obviously with heavy investment, that being said. And yeah, I think if y'all like him, give him a try. I think he's worth investing to, especially if you don't have a fire PvE unit like Chloros. He's going to be my go-to fire guy for union bosses, boss rush, thing like that. So I'll leave y'all with some footage, and thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace out, everyone.